Welcome to The Hypnotist, the show that gives you inside access to cutting-edge hypnosis with real clients facing genuine issues. Brought to you by the hypnotherapist demanded by celebrities, CEOs, and even royalty, Adam Cox. These recordings took place live from Adam's clinic in London's world-famous Harley Street. This podcast features powerful hypnosis, so do not listen while driving or operating machinery. This recording is not suitable for those with epilepsy or severe mental health issues. So, get yourself comfortable and enjoy today's episode of The Hypnotist.
Hi, it's Adam here, and in this episode of The Hypnotist, you're going to be listening to what I thought was going to be a past life regression hypnosis session. There was a volunteer, Neil, that put his name forward to help with this concept of a TV show that I'm working on that integrates past life regression with other elements. And we had a chat before, and he was kind of curious about past life regression, felt very intuitive, almost had too many incidences of serendipity and kind of almost signs, almost like dreams that kind of gave warnings or clues. So thought he could be a good candidate for this. And we did the session, and actually what was evident actually during the session is that he hadn't actually accessed a past life, but a different perspective within his own life, and almost accessing the body of his son, which normally in hypnosis we would call that a second perspective. So a first person perspective is when you're in your own body. A third person perspective is when you're observing your body through the eyes of a stranger almost. And a second person perspective is when you're interacting from someone that you know or someone that's involved in the emotion. And what was clear is that there was insight that he can gain from that regression and different perspective within his own life. And there was an acceptance that mistakes were made and that he could learn from those mistakes. And while he had learned within his own life, there was an opportunity to push that forwards and backwards generationally, to take his own personal experience of being fallible and think about how that would impact his relationship with his father, but also if that kind of thing had happened over 2 generations, what could he do to help his son avoid maybe similar mistakes that were linked to this generational pattern? It also taps into the idea of regret. And, once it was clear that he was kind of within his own lifetime or immediate vicinity of his lifetime, it made sense to kind of look forward and say, right, well, if at the end of his life he was able to review that, what would be his proudest achievement, and actually what would be his biggest regret? And because obviously that hadn't happened yet, the ideal thing to do, and it's worth asking yourself right now, if you were to get to the end of your life, what would your biggest regret be? And then if there's anything you can do to change it so that that regret doesn't happen, then actually that's a really powerful thing to do. It integrates hypnosis to get to that realization, but you can just think, what would my biggest regret be and how do I avoid it? So there's a few things going on here. If you like the idea of being a volunteer for actual past life regression, rather than kind of regression in your own life, because that's something I would charge for if it's therapeutic within this, because it doesn't give me as much for the material for the TV show, then you can drop me an email, adam@adamcox.co.uk, or find me on Instagram, drop me a direct message. I appreciate there's been a few people that have reached out that I haven't had time to respond to yet, just because I had a bit more people requesting than I expected. So I will be in touch if I haven't already been in touch. But if you haven't been in touch yet, please reach out so we can explore how you might be able to help with this project, even if that's just being a guest and a volunteer and experiencing a past life regression session. So find a quiet place where you won't be disturbed, relax, and enjoy the session. Take a deep breath in. As you breathe in a resourceful feeling of relaxation. And as you exhale, just allow your eyelids to close. And as they close, notice that as you breathe in and breathe out, your breathing starts to slow and deepen. Breathing in a warm feeling of resourcefulness. And as you exhale, accepting that it's okay to release any feelings of tension, stress, anxiety or worry, enabling you to feel deeper and deeper relaxed simply by breathing in and breathing out. I want you to find that place. Physiologically, it could be a posture, a speed of breathing that enables you to access thoughts, feelings and intuition. And sometimes it helps to go to a place in your mind, that same place when you effortlessly daydream, that place where your intuition guides you, the place where when you dream, you start to feel like you're really there. As you breathe in and breathe out, I want you to imagine a place in nature. Maybe you can imagine trees, maybe a river, a lake, mountains, blue skies, white clouds, sunshine on your skin, and feel like you're breathing in that pure, clean air. And for some reason, I want you to imagine there is a doorway here in nature that leads to your own private cinema. I want you to imagine walking through the door, and it's an incredible cinema. Comfortable, luxurious seats, big screen. I want you to imagine there's a remote control. This is a cinema that you're fully in control of. I want you to imagine pressing that red button that switches the screen on. But this screen looks different. Maybe it looks like an interface you're familiar with. Netflix or YouTube. Thumbnails of all different lifetimes. And you can scroll backwards and forwards. And I want you to get a sense that there is a lifetime where something significant happened that is still rippling through time and affecting your life now. And sometimes, when you're just scrolling, your intuition is leading you to a place that you needed to find. So as you breathe in and breathe out, feeling so relaxed perhaps in that cinema chair, looking at the big screen, seeing lifetime after lifetime, and maybe you've had 100 or 200 previous lives. But I want you to feel drawn just by scrolling to a particular life. And when you feel like you found a life that you need to revisit for some reason, maybe unfinished business, maybe there's a pearl of wisdom to be gleaned. When you feel that there is a life that you are drawn to, let me know by nodding your head. Then perhaps press that button on the remote control. Maybe it's an OK button or something like that, and then feel like on that screen you're seeing a small child in that world. And when you can see a small child, perhaps 3, 4, 5 years old, maybe at a different time in history, a different environment, let me know by nodding your head. And then I want you to feel like you're switching perspectives. You're no longer in the cinema, you're in the body of that small child, feeling what it would feel like to be a small child living at that point in time. You feel safe, you feel protected, but I want you to imagine that you are exploring your surroundings. And I want you to let me know what you see and what you experience.
Lots of adults. And I can see the pavement. I can see the bus stop. I can hear a lot of noise, a lot of cars going by.
And how old do you think you are in this life?
3.
Okay. And I want you to imagine that you're going to wherever you would sleep. Maybe it's later that day, maybe the previous day. You can go backwards and forwards in time. And then just feel like you're sleeping wherever you would sleep. And I want you to wake up at a point in that same life where something important happened, something significant, emotionally significant, or perhaps the most significant thing that happened in this life. And then when you're ready, it's time to wake up still within your imagination, but at that point in time. And then feel like you're awakening at this new age within the same life. And I want you to look around where you are. Maybe find something reflective like a mirror. Maybe just something that you can see your reflection in, and I want you to describe what you see.
I see my son as a small child wearing his school uniform of today. His hair's short and he just looks really young and innocent.
How do you feel in this moment?
A lot of love for him. And also a lot of fear for him.
I want you to tell me what happens.
He has no idea what's about to happen between me and his mother, and that he won't see me for a number of years, but he needs me.
Are you feeling like you're in your own body at this point, or are you observing?
I'm seeing himself. I'm him. But he's looking at himself in the mirror.
Yeah. And I want you to go forwards in time and then tell me what happens, the next most significant thing that happens there.
We're in the park near our family home. We're together, we're on a swing. We're recording a video of us two on the swing. And he says the words, "I love you, Daddy, I love you, Mummy." And he's just having a lot of fun.
And how long did this feel like it was after that?
About 2 years.
Okay. When you're experiencing this, if you could make one single change in this perception of this reality, what would you change?
The dark side of myself, my addictions.
I want you to go back in time to the very first time that one of those addictions started. And sometimes one addiction can lead to another addiction. I want you to go back to the very first time that created a chain reaction. And knowing what you know about what happens in the future, and knowing that there's a desire to make that change, if you could relive that very first moment that created the whole chain reaction again, what would you do differently?
I wouldn't have partaken in something or taken something which was offered to me for free. And I would have gone clean to then go do a performance with my idols without something.
And are you in your body at this time, or are you observing you?
I'm observing me.
Yeah. I want you to step into that version of you at that age, rewind it right before you're offered something, and to feel it's your choice, is what you say in that moment. To feel that you own that decision. And then just tell me what happens in this new timeline.
I then go on for a night to perform with my music idols. We all celebrate, we have fun. I'm given respect for what I've done tonight in terms of the performance. We enjoy the rest of the week in another country. I then come back feeling on top of the world, that I've done something that I thought that I could never do. And that transpires into my confidence in myself, into my work, with my family, with my friends. And I go on to do more performances as I did, but as a completely different individual who's more successful.
And what qualities do you attribute to this version of you that made a different choice?
Seeking validation from them and being part of them.
So when you made the choice, what they thought of you mattered, and when you made a different choice, there was a growing sense of inner confidence, and that the validation came from within you rather than external. Okay, and I want you to go forwards in that timeline, the timeline where there was no addiction because you made a different choice, and that created a sense of empowerment and self-control and self-love that came from within you, and go forwards in that timeline until the next most significant thing happened, and tell me what happens.
I'm sitting in a hotel room before going out for another musical performance. I'm in a room full of other artists and they're all drinking. They've got girls all around them, there's alcohol everywhere, there's drugs everywhere. And I'm sitting on the bed, looking at them all to thinking they're a mess. And then I don't want any of that, because I can't. The following day, I've got to go see my boy. And I'm feeling empowered in myself that I don't have to, and that I can walk away smiling, thinking they're fucked. And I'm not.
So there's a feeling of freedom. Freedom, self-control, you're master of your own destiny. And then go forwards again on that same timeline where you're this identity. And what's the next most significant thing that happens?
fitness class and I meet one of my mentors where I'm struggling with certain things that are going on in my life that I've lost, and I'm shaking his hand, coming to somewhere that's scaring the hell out of me, because I want to better myself and I want to get well, not just physically but mentally. And him reaching out his hand and greeting me for the first time and introducing me to his class, and then taking steps into that class feeling so unfit, out of shape, and worried of how people are looking at me, but enjoying that moment of escapism for the first time in months.
And if you were to extract one bit of wisdom from this life and what you've seen that becomes usable for you, what would that wisdom be?
You can handle more than you think. And it is all to do with the power of your mind and the choices that you make. And at the end of the day, you're the only person that can save yourself. So stop killing yourself.
I want you to feel like that intellectual wisdom is not just knowledge or information. I want you to feel like you're absorbing that into your body at a cellular level. You're taking that principle and it becomes you, almost a part of your DNA. That you are capable of more than you ever realized. That personal responsibility is empowerment. That your choices are freedom. That you can handle what life throws at you, and it doesn't knock you down, it makes you stronger. I want you to take all of that. It's not knowledge, it's not even experience, it's identity. This is now who you are. Every cell in your body, that won't change. And at the point where you feel that this is integrating with your DNA, let me know by nodding your head. That's it. And then I want you to imagine going all the way to the end of this life. Perhaps just with weeks or months before this life ends. And I want you to think back on that life. And I want you to think and try and locate two things. What you're most proud of and your biggest regret. And when you think you've found those bits of information from this life, let me know by nodding your head. So first of all, what is the proudest, the thing that fills you with pride when looking back at this life?
The first thing is my son grown up, living his own life, so happy in whatever he's doing, comfortable, living independently, and just happy and full of joy.
And what's the regret that you feel in this life?
Not being as close or understanding my own father and holding resentment and distance from him. But then realizing he was just trying to do the same thing.
I want you to get a sense that there are two key things that people regret. Doing things they wish they didn't. And that gives a huge learning opportunity, but more importantly is not doing those things they wish they did. So if you could go back in time in this same life and make a change so that that regret wasn't there, I want you to go back to that moment and do something differently so that future regret would not exist. Just go back in time, relive a moment, that would mean that future regret disappears. When you've done that thing, let me know by nodding your head. Then I want you to go forwards back to the end of your life and just check that that regret is no longer there. And if it is gone, let me know by nodding your head. That's it. I want you to lock into that feeling of pride and notice the absence of that regret. Feeling a sense of inner peace as you know that it's days, weeks, or even months until your soul will carry on, but this physical vessel will cease to exist, and you're feeling calm and at peace with that idea. And if you feel you're in a good place, let me know by nodding your head. Then I want you to feel like you're changing perspectives. You're in a cinema chair, looking at a screen, seeing that version of you completely at peace towards the end of their life, living a good life with feelings of pride, with minimal regrets. I want you to imagine leaving this private cinema. As you go through the door, there's no foyer of this cinema. You're back out there in nature. But I want you to get a sense that something has fundamentally changed. You feel lighter. It's a feeling of immense personal responsibility, a feeling of freedom, and a resolve to make changes, to reconcile life as you want it with life as it is. And if you feel you have unlocked the desire, but also the resources necessary to make sufficient changes, let me know by nodding your head. As you return back to the present, accepting that this journey was just thoughts within thoughts, ideas within ideas, dreams within dreams, and you're here in the present as you take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your nose. Just wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes, feeling fully integrated in the full present, this life, this time, right now, as I now count from 1 to 10 to awaken you. Starting to count. 1, 2, 3, waking up. 4, 5, 6, more alert. 7, 8, open your eyes, open your eyes. 9, 10, wide awake, wide awake, wide awake. So thanks for that, Neil. Do you want to give me a quick summary of kind of what that felt like and what you experienced there?
I've never felt anything like that before. It felt surreal. It felt like I went into different layers and levels of my past and maybe saw things that I hadn't seen before and things that I haven't experienced for a number of years and things I haven't wanted to think about. And facing them, it was uncomfortable.
I got a sense just from the conversation that we had before we did that session that perhaps that was regressing to a part of your existing life rather than a previous life, which is no bad thing. If that's where you needed to get to, that's the ideal place to get to. How did it feel going back in time and re-experiencing something that clearly happened some time ago?
Felt weird is the only way that I can explain it. It just felt, because I've ruminated on things in the past and you only touch it for a couple of seconds and then you move on from it. But spending time there and feeling those emotions and those senses and replaying those memories longer and spending more time there was different. It was weird. I've not had that before.
I think one of the key ways that I approach therapy is that you can't change the past, but what you can do is you can change how you think about the past. And one of the things that people naturally do, you may have had this experience, you leave a meeting, you leave some kind of interaction, and the moment you leave, you're replaying the same scenario again and again in your head, all different variations of it. And as humans, we naturally do this in certain circumstances, not because we think it's actually going to change what happened, but because by doing so, anything similar to that situation, we now have an edge because we now have an idea of how to handle that situation. When you looked at some of the situations of your past, thinking, knowing what I now know, I would do something different, did that feel like it was a useful exercise for you?
Yeah, because you've gained perspective since that point. And when you notice similar patterns happening later in life in different scenarios, it reminds you, wait a minute, I've seen this before. This is how it played out last time. This is how I should handle it this time moving forward. So that is a constant thing in life. And I 100% agree with you. We can never go back and change things, but we can madden ourselves trying to rationalize what happened at that point in our life and how it could have worked out, rather than what is the lesson objectively, taking the emotion out of it and seeing it for what it is. That's quite hard to do.
Yeah, it's hard to do, but that's where the value is, because one of the most futile things to do is to replay the same moment again and again and say, why did I do that? If only I'd have done something else. But to look at it through the lens of the stoic level of, I've accepted that that's happened, but now I've got the responsibility of dealing with that, whether you call it atonement, wisdom, application, feedback, there's a lot of power in putting your hands up and saying, yeah, I did that thing, or I made that mistake, or that was my choice, but I'm wiser now than I was than the person that made that, and therefore I'm a different person than I was at that point in time. Going back to that point of regret, it seemed like there was a regret related to your father. Do you mind me asking if your father is still alive, and if it's still possible to take what seemed like an insight that could be applied to actually change things in the life that you are?
Yeah, so dad is still alive. And I think sometimes where my bitterness or my resentment comes from is things I can see myself within him. So certain choices he's made in life and how he sees the world, and there is a conflict there, and that sometimes causes distance between us because emotionally it can charge me, and I don't want to fall out with him or have an argument with him. But I think I'm more like, after doing this session, I'm more annoyed with him because it reminds me of me and I see myself within him, or vice versa. Um, and there is a want to try and, mediate things and make things more closer. But I try to protect myself so that I don't get too drawn into things. But when you love someone deeply, you can get annoyed with them at the same time, and you can say the wrong thing or act in a different way where you don't really want to, but you're kind of on autopilot because you're trying to protect yourself.
Yeah, and I think that's normally the ideal balance is there are certain situations where boundaries protect you, but they also protect other people. So boundaries are really important, but sometimes every now and then it's useful to kind of let the boundaries down. Even people at war, I think the Christmas Day football match in like World War I or something like that is a great symbol, because what it symbolizes is that even in the chaos, people are still people, they're still fallible, they're still human, and having that ability to kind of connect. And even if the person that you're playing with is the person that shot your friend a few days ago, in that point in time, you're just people playing, if that makes sense. So even if, you've done things wrong to your dad or he's done things wrong with you, it's still one human talking to another human, if that makes sense. And there's power in that perspective. Is there anything that from this session that you feel you can take and use in your life that might enable positive changes?
Yeah, so with the addiction side of things, I've been clean for quite a while, but there is always that chameleon in the back of my mind which creeps up when stressful or traumatic events are happening. And then it can want to push me to want to go back into that life. And I really have to use my willpower to be like, no. But here, reflecting on myself, my son, my life, and choices I've made, it is a really good reminder. as to why not to go down that path. Again, I have the choice. I can decide how things pan out. And I think there can be an element of, if I was to take a wrong choice, I can play it out in my head as to how things could end up if I go down that path. Whereas sometimes when you have these sort of things, you do things in the heat of the moment and then you regret it because you're not playing out how things could happen from doing certain things. So I think this has been really powerful to remind myself, dude, don't.
Fair enough. Any other insights that came up for you? Were you disappointed that you didn't see a past life, or did you feel like it was important for you to kind of, resolve something in this life?
There was no disappointment whatsoever. I think because I didn't have any expectations per se as to how this was going to go, I was just totally open for it. But I was pleasantly surprised that I visited things in my former lives that I haven't seen for a while. And I think what was really unnerving was that element of seeing my son. And I think that could be, I don't know, inner child work, or it could be something within myself that I'm seeing that I haven't done or given myself love for.
Yeah. I think there's also a possibility is that you, in the same way that you see a bit of yourself in your father, you know that there's a bit of you in your son. And perhaps some of the things that you don't really respect or like about yourself could also be there in your son. And whereas you can't change your past, perhaps you could influence your son's future if you know that there's certain attributes that may have, already gone, rippled over 2 generations. That may be the real wisdom there, not so much for you, but for a new generation, if that makes sense. Neil, thank you so much for being a volunteer today. Any final things you wanted to say?
Just a massive salute to you, Adam. I think this is really awesome. This is powerful. I've never done a hypnosis session, and I'd recommend people doing this. This is awesome. So thank you.
Thank you, Neil. Appreciate that.
Thank you for listening to The Hypnotist with Adam Cox, the show that gives you inside access to cutting-edge hypnosis with real clients facing genuine issues. To automatically receive the latest episodes, please subscribe. If you'd like to support the show, please share this episode with just one friend you think it could help. And if this episode helped you, please leave us a 5-star review.